Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, issue 2. Tom King writing with Bill Evely on the art. Continuing this narration of the young character, but obviously clearly in her older age, thinking back to this time that she spent with Supergirl. And they're traveling through space on what is effectively a space coach, which even starts with a young character having to like argue with an alien who's resting on her shoulder, without consent.
I do not know this character's name because I just started calling her Matty Ross after a while.
Yeah, well.
Because this is True Grit, and it just is. And to the point where because I was not here for the first issue, so I read both these issues today, and I realized halfway through the first issue, before it kind of clicked that it was True Grit specifically, I started hearing the narration in that voice, like in her voice. It probably doesn't help that I listened to the audiobook of True Grit like a few months ago. I was just hearing that voice for this entire, all these narration boxes. I do think it's a little heavy on the narration boxes, but
yes,
there is a heavy narration. It does give it a kind of a tone though that is very different to most comics. The way it kind of tries to, because when she's here on this and she's like, hey, my companion is Supergirl and she will defeat you and whatever, she tries to leverage that, and Supergirl just doesn't give a shit. I mean, what's so funny about it is, Supergirl is sort of in that True Grit role, but obviously she's still Supergirl, and there's moments of that later on in the issue. Because one of the things at the start of the narration here is that this character talks about how she was the youngest sibling, and all the other siblings were boys, and they only got to wash once per week. And by the time she got to do it, it was just this filthy water that it went through all these other people. And talks about how people in the town would like hold their noses at them because they thought they were all smelly.
The point of that story might be my favorite part of this book, though, is that she's saying this because she knows what it was like to be really smelly. So if this coach that they're writing in was making her gag, it was really bad.
Well, there's that. But the larger, more important thing, though, is that the payoff to it is later when Supergirl notices she's not washing her hands in the bathroom. And it's this kind of sad thing where she's just never like realized how easy it is for other people to like just have access to a sink and soap and just do this whenever you want, like do it this willy-nilly. And Supergirl sort of teaches her to, and there's a great sequence of panels going down the page just showing her washing her hands, and it's kind of this like weird surreal moment for her where her hands are nice and clean.
It was like a PSA a year late.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's what inspired it too.
Yeah, all those posters and videos that were everywhere last year.
King's like, all right, that's what we're doing.
This is the King and Evely take on a. It was going around last year with the lyrics of whatever song you chose to the correct hand washing method. This was just that version.
Okay, sure. I never thought of that once I was reading it, but okay.
I'm sorry for living in the real world.
I'm sorry for just reading the intent of the story as I was reading it.
Anyway.
Yes, anyway. They get to a station for like a pit stop. Alien basically tries to pick a fight with Supergirl because Superman threw some of his buddies in the Phantom Zone. Probably justifiably, knowing Superman. And the character mentions that this is something that happened a lot on this trip, and she's not going to mention the rest of them, but this is just the example of the first time. They make it clear that this, like, they constantly come up to her because they're too scared to fight Superman, but they assume that Supergirl is easier. The Supergirl is going to be a bit weaker, and they can take advantage of that. And and Supergirl's really catty about it. I kind of enjoyed her snarky attitude here. I'm wearing a big yellow S on my chest. Although I would argue that the S is red. It's the negative space that's yellow, but that's it's a nitpick. It's a nitpick, but yeah. So if I'm not Supergirl, then who the F do you think I am? Before taking care of him, I think this issue worked a bit better than the first issue for me because it felt like it was more, because we'd already done the setup of what the where, there was so much to introduce in the first issue, whereas this felt like it was just more of a deep thought analysis of the early days of this trip, and it kind of worked better in that sense for me, where we have some context already. We have Supergirl. There's even kind of like a homage to the Angel Supergirl stuff from the 90s here.
I picked that up.
Yeah, because the encounter there's this like space dragon thing outside
which is gorgeous looking.
Yeah.
Like, the way Evilly draws it, this blue swirl in space. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's outside the coach or one of the stations, and basically Supergirl says, "Okay, who's got some of those red pills?" And turns out it's red kryptonite in a pill. And for regular, other races, it gives them a psychotic or not psychotic, a psychedelic effect. But for a Kryptonian, of course, it does other things. And I feel like red kryptonite like changes every time it comes up.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with this take.
This is more of a Silver Age, where it's a random effect.
Yeah, I'd never heard this. Right, this idea that if she like dreams something or thinks about something on the red kryptonite, it'll come true. But I kind of stopped thinking about it too much when I turned the page and saw the gorgeous art of her with the big fire angel wings outside in space, like dealing with this dragon. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna let this slide because this is kind of nice.
Yeah. Because the art of it is just too gorgeous to overthink it.
Yeah.
So
I'm wondering how. Yeah, but how does the girl retelling the story know? You know what I mean? That's also.
She was looking out the window.
No, I know that, but I'm talking about with the red kryptonite. Like, did Kara explain this to her?
I'm sure she
did.
Yeah,
the dialogue comes from Kara saying, sometimes you turn into a monster, sometimes your hair grows too long, but it's worth a try.
It's a speech bubble.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I know that. I'm talking because this is all a retelling, correct?
Yeah.
As she's going through, right? So did she explain it just in that way, and that's the way that she's,
Well, no,
that's the way she remembers it all these years later?
The narration's coming from present day or the future, but everything we're seeing in the panels, but when there's actual dialogue, that's just what dialogue was said.
Okay, I'm still. It's fine.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's confusing.
This is not confusing.
Oh, it's not confusing. I'm just saying that when it comes to the red kryptonite stuff, where Pete's like, this is a new take on it, right, and stuff. Like, I'm just.
As far as I know.
Right in the vibe of it, it's also this is her retelling the story, so it's not like we're seeing. Anyways, it's just not important.
Okay.
We can move on.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So. Yeah, so she goes this, and she narrates about how she thought she couldn't be impressed by anything, or that she'd seen everything on her planet, and turns out she was a damn fool because this is a whole other level. And that's when we get to the hand washing scene, where she's like, "Well, you've not been washing your hands," and she says this, and in the narration she's like, "This was something that would become really apparent over time as these moments of kindness," because she is still Supergirl, and she just teaches her how to wash her hands, and it's just a simple little heartwarming sequence that I wasn't expecting that story about how she would only get to wash once a week in such horrible conditions to come back in kind of a way that felt like, I don't know, she's finally getting to see the other side of the world in a very literal way through this action and through this just ease of use and opportunity. And
I love that Kara's able to pass it on to her, and he's like, "Yeah, I was on one planet where it was almost like an acid because their skin was real strong, so you have to be careful. Hopefully, it's water."
Yeah,
I like that little moment.
There's some good extra detail. Yeah, just sort of if you're on another planet, make sure it's still just soap and water they use. But and then we have the sort of the bookend almost of the main part of it, which is once again there's an alien leaning on her shoulder, and this guy's not really getting talked down like the first one was, and we just get the elbow coming in at super speed. And Supergirl just goes straight back to sleep, but this guy's got bloody nose now. So it's a clear distinction from that first scene, because this time Supergirl, even though she's still looking like she's sleeping, did step in, is paying attention, and did look out for her. So there is kind of that bond forming as we go.
And then we get a couple of pages that pick up from the end of the last issue, which I was grateful for.
Yeah, it kind of explains the decision to go on this journey and what the goal of it is, beyond just getting the guy who murdered her father.
Right, because we ended the first issue, there was still around her little ship. And then the next, the start of this issue, we're on the big coach with everyone. I definitely did a double take. I was like, did I miss something?
Yeah, I figured it was coming at some point, and sure enough, it is here at the end of the book, which is that Crypto is dying because they need a sample of the poison. Because if the Doctor can get the exact poison that was used, they can probably fix it and cure Crypto. So there's kind of there's like a noble goal of saving Crypto in all this as well. But this is what led to Supergirl accepting this mission to go after this villain. So that's kind of neat. Yeah, it's a neat issue, I think, because I think the first issue suffered for most people because it just wasn't what anyone expected. No one was expecting this weird True Grit kind of analogy told through Supergirl. But now that I think we know what it is, I think going into this issue, I was able to just kind of appreciate this issue for completely what it was, and thought it was well told.
Yeah, I think this is pretty fantastic. I think I would enjoy it even more if you took out about 30% of the narration boxes. Just the narration boxes specifically. All the dialogue's fine, but so much narration.
When you're trying to read that much and someone at work is trying to talk to you because they don't respect the international symbol of book in face means leave me alone.
Yeah, people don't do that with their earphones in ears.
No, which I'm going to have to start doing. But
it doesn't work.
Yeah. So, yeah, I agree with Connor on that one. That, however, that's my own personal reading. It's not like I didn't find them. It's just, it's very hard to keep it going when you're constantly being interrupted and you look down and there's so many narration boxes.
Like for me, it's not that any individual one is bad. I think all of them are well written. They all have that really distinct voice, and it gives it a good flow and through line. But sometimes I'm just like, oh man, just get out of the way of the art. Like that page with the angel wings. There's 10 narration boxes on that. That needed 2 at most on that page. Just let that be a big, gorgeous page.
I get what you're saying. It kind of fits the tone that it's going for, and that when I think of True Grit and I think of that narration, I think of it being constant. I think of it being
I think that's one of those weird things of it's more prevalent in your memory than it actually is.
Maybe it probably is, but yeah. I mean, I get objectively, I get it. I do get it. I don't know if it bothered me too much in the grand scheme of things. What I will say about the art there, particularly with that space dragon stuff and the fire wings, is that I think what works so well about that is that because those couple of pages are very fantastical and it's very ethereal because it's all this sort of almost not abstract but very
really soft lines in comparison to everything else.
Soft lines. There's no boxes. It's all just this big splash and it's all very colorful and magical looking. I think what works so well about that is because the whole point of our main character here is saying that she thought she'd seen everything, but then this sight was something she'd never seen before. The art was intentionally, I mean, it's still built cohesively, but the art was very, it was as in regular comic book panels. It was all really normal looking things in the context of a sci-fi anyway. We're on ships and stuff and there's aliens walking about, but in very easy to understand context where there's people at a bar or there's whatever, they're in a bathroom. But you get to that few pages and it's like, oh, this is fantastical and otherworldly and something that it would be like seeing, I don't know, like a giant waterfall for the first time and you've never been near that, or seeing something, something spectacular in nature. It really had that vibe to it.
Especially that page before Supergirl goes out to fight it, where you see it on the same page as the ship. Where the ship it's very much a traditional sci-fi, hard lines, angles, very square, and then you mechanical, and then you have this dragon. It's very circular, flowing, kind of wraps around itself, and it feels so completely different and at odds with the current environment that it just sticks out.
Yeah. And I think you might even argue there's kind of a bit of symbolism here for Supergirl and what she is in the world around her in many ways. and what a lot of stories with Supergirl tend to kind of like give her as a vibe is they want her to feel like she is the special person there who is going to make things better for people. That's definitely something we see. I think specifically with her, I mean, you could apply that to almost any superhero in a lot of ways, really, but I feel like Supergirl in particular, I feel like has had that quite a few times in various stories that I've read about her, where they'll go for that kind of like that compassion and that kind of those acts of kindness, but with a bit more attitude than Clark has, because she is someone who, wasn't raised by the Kents. She's got a little bit more of a snarkiness to her, and that's okay.
Yeah, and obviously we've praised Evely a lot, and rightly so. Should give it a shout out to Lopez as well with the colors, because they are stunningly gorgeous colors throughout this issue.
Yep. So Matt's been a little quiet though. Did you enjoy this issue, Matt?
Yeah. No, I did. I just, again, I could not take it all in because as I was trying to read it in the crunch today, I was constantly being interrupted. So, yeah, I need to get the fall. I'm gonna have to probably give it a reread.
Yeah, I don't think I can put the blame on Tom King for your being interrupted.
Absolutely not. That's why I'm being quiet, because I can't. The stuff that I did read that I did like. You know what I mean? So, it's good. And Evely art, we all know where I stand on that. So.
Yeah, she did some issue of was it Batman?
Have you ever heard of it?
I think it was Batman.
No, it was not Batman.
All right, maybe Cold Snap. But that is Supergirl, Women of Tomorrow. What are you giving it, Matt?
I'm despite what I just said, I did enjoy it. I'm gonna give it an 8.
Connor,
I'm gonna give it an 8.5. Which says a lot given my narration box concern. It would have, with less of them, would have been a 9 easily.
I will probably agree with the 8.5 on this. But I think it's really good. I think it's saying something that, yeah, it's probably like 3rd or 4th out of the current Tom King books, but the standard he's got right now is actually exceptionally high.